Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Digital REC and Data Spec training session. My name is Jenny, and I'll be facilitating today's event. And today I'm joined by April Harbour. And just before we get started, I just want to do some housekeeping. So we do ask that you keep your cameras and your microphones off. The event will be recorded, so if there's anything that you missed, there'll be an opportunity to refer back to slides. We'll also be using Slido today, so if you have any questions at any point, just pop it into Slido. And yeah, as previously mentioned, there will be opportunities for a Q&A. So yeah, if anything springs to mind, just pop it into Slido. And the QR code is on the screen now. And I'll also pop a link in the chat. So just wait for people to sign in. And just while people are popping their names into Slido, I will share the agenda. And I think we have quite a few things to cover today, so I will hand over to April.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. So hello, good morning, everyone, and welcome again to the Digital REC and Data Specification training event. So my name is April. I work within the REC Code Manager in the Technical Design Authority. So today we're going to cover a few different topics, but namely introduce the new user interface to access the Digital REC and the REC Data Specification items and provide an overview of the functionality there. We're also going to look at how to make changes to the data specification and then a quick view over the gas meter product data change process. After we've gone through the content of the slides, I'm then planning to give you a very short live demonstration within the REC portal. And as Jenny said, we have got some time at the end of today's session for you to ask any questions. Hopefully we'll be able to get through all of these. Please feel free to add those into Slido as we're going through the content, as opposed to leave it to the end. So that helps keep things moving. If we can't get through any and all of the questions today, then we will provide you with answers and publish those as part of our post-event pack. So firstly, we're going to take a look at the Digital REC. So when we refer to the Digital REC, these are all REC documents which are digitally based and available via the REC portal. First up, we have the Digital REC schedules. So the new REC portal mega menu went live in September of this year, and this introduced a new user interface. You have the 5 main options that you see at the top of the slide that are always available to you, whichever page you're on within the REC portal. These allow for easy navigation to different areas. Each of these main headers have a number of subsidiary pages included. To find out what's included, you just need to kind of select on the drop down. You'll be provided with a view. So we can find all of the REC schedules under the code products drop down. So if you select code products and then the first option is the REC and the REC schedules, you'll then be directed to a new page which hosts all of these. So we've just got the top 3 on there just to give you a view, but all of them are included. Once you're on this page, you then have a number of options. So if you were to select the far right option, the little right hand arrow, this one will then take you through to the REC schedule in digital format. Once the schedule page has been opened, you'll then be able to see a version of the legal text you're viewing through the versions table, and it will always default to the latest live version. You'll also be able to see the contents table. So all of the items under the contents are linked. So if you have a specific section or an appendix of that schedule that you wish to view, you can select it from the contents and that will directly navigate you to the section of the REC legal text. From this page, you can also download the live version of the REC schedule in the Word format. If we can just pop to the next slide, please. Once you're in the Digital REC schedule page, you'll also be able to see where a REC defined term is used within the legal text. So these are identifiable by underlined text. So if you select on any of these terms, a new browser window will open and that will provide you the definition and the description under the REC. Additionally, some REC schedules, there are references to REC data items or REC market messages, though these may also be hyperlinked and the selection will take you to the relevant market message or data item page where you can find further information. Just to the next slide, please. As of the November 24 release, there is also now a new search function which is available within all digital REC documents. You'll find this under the versions table, and you see the search bar there on your screen, and you can specify any term or phrase or number, and the function will search the entire document to see if it's referenced. If it is, you'll automatically be directed to that first instance where the reference is made, and then you can use the up and down arrow function to move between different instances. Presently, the text is not highlighted, but this will be occurring in a future release to make navigation that little bit easier. If the term or the phrase that's being searched is not referenced within the document, you'll see on the search bar there'll be a 0/0 response, and that indicates that there's no term of that variety found. To the next slide. So as well as the REC schedules, we also have several other REC documents which exist in digital format. These are things such as the REC Code Service Provider Data Specifications and Definition documents and technical specification. Access to these is the same as we've just previously viewed, and all of these documents have the same search functions that we've just exampled there. They are contained in separate areas, so they're not included under the REC and the REC schedules, but when we get to the live demonstration, I'll give you a quick overview of where you can find these documents. To the next slide, please, Jenny. And so just to provide an overview, and I thought this one was an important one to call out. So there are also the inquiry service data access matrices. These are not digital REC documents. However, they are available to download and view, and they support the information that's contained under REC Schedule 12, which is regarding data access. So this schedule describes who and what data can be accessed in the inquiry services. The data access matrices identify the role-based access and the specified data items specific party types can access. So while they're not REC documents, it's still an important document to highlight to you. So that takes us to the end of our first section quite quickly, looking at the digital REC and how to access and navigate. And we move into our next section on the agenda now, which is regarding the REC Data Specification. So we're going to look at what it is, how you can access the relevant catalogues, how you can download them and navigate through user dashboards, which are available via the REC portal. So we'll start with what the REC Data Specification is. So essentially it describes the data items and market messages that are used by industry parties to send and receive information. It includes not only REC-owned items, but also messages and data items which are owned and governed under different codes, such as the ones we have on the screen. So we've got the BSC, DCUSA, the UNC, and the SEC. In terms of the items governed under the REC, the data specification contains the contents of the data transfer network, the DTN, which was electricity-based and was previously defined under the Master Registration Agreement, the MRA, so you may have heard that term before. And it also includes the gas market messages that were previously defined under the Supply Point Administration Agreement, the SPA. The full REC data specification catalogues can be downloaded from the REC portal underneath the Code Products dropdown, and you can do this via 3 formats. So we have 2 machine-readable formats in Access Database and an SQL backpack file, and a human-readable HTML file. Just pop to the next slide, please. So you can access all the REC data specification catalogues, dashboards and documents from within the REC portal under Code Products. So all the items that are included on the right-hand side of the slide screenshot you can see there. And you can open any of the items and download or access relevant pages as necessary. Thank you. So in line with the new Mega Menu release, there is also a new user dashboard for market messages. So market messages are the full composite structure of a collection of data items used to send flows between parties. You can select the market messages under the Code Products dashboard we just saw. That's going to open the dashboard that you see on the left-hand side of the slide. Here you can search both in full and partial matches using terms to refine the message or messages that you wish to view. You can also do a further refinement on your search using the source and the target, which is essentially the from and the to, or the sending and receiving party. And the search output will provide one or many depending on the terms of your search criteria. Outside of any search criteria, you can always find a full list of market messages, which is just underneath the dashboard, and you can scroll through those and select as you wish. Once you've found the market message that you want to view, you can select it from the table, and that's going to open the full page, which is included in the middle part of the slide image. Here you're going to find the full name and REC reference, any legacy references, and a message version. You'll also see a full description of the message and any notes related to that message. In this page, you're also going to find a table of applicable scenario variants. So scenario variants are the permissible options of parties who can send or receive a market message. Each of these variants have a specific reference number. The table will also display the code owner. Now, the code owner is under which code the changes, any changes are governed. So each scenario variant may have different conditions for the permitted flow structure that needs to be issued, and the flow structure relevant to that scenario variant will then be displayed directly underneath the table. So if you select between any or multiple options of scenario variants, you'll see that the structure and the flow table, which is included on the right-hand side of the slide, will potentially then change. If we can just drop to the next slide, please. So we're going to have a look in a little bit more detail about that market message structure table here. So all market messages are sent and received within a defined structure. These will all have header and footer formatting, but the data specification specifically describes the content of the message and how it should be structured. So we're just going to take a very brief walkthrough of what the items shown in the structure table mean. So we start off with a group ID, and this represents a line within the market message file. You also then have group description, which is the description of the data items included within the group, which specify relevant information. We then have range. This outlines how many instances a group needs to be implemented, and it includes the minimum and the maximum number of instances. So sometimes in industry documentation, you may hear it referred to as different terms. So minimum is sometimes referred to as the modality, and maximum is sometimes referred to as cardinality. But essentially what this is doing is telling you the minimum number of groups and the maximum number. Where you've got the asterisk there, it's essentially unlimited, and you can have as many of those groups within a specified file that is issued. We then have a condition, and that will refer to any specific data item conditions which have to be met when issuing the flow. But before we look at the example that we've got on the screen, I just want to point out the levels. So these present the relationship between each of the data items within a group and their conditionality. So if you see a 1, that's a mandatory data item. An O is an optional data item, and a C is a conditional data item. So further to the preceding column, conditional items will have the conditions specified. So in this particular example, we're looking at group ID 003, meter registers to be investigated. The conditional item is the additional information, which specifies additional information is mandatory if reason for request data item value does not provide sufficient information to identify the reason for the suspected fault. So you don't have to include additional information as part of that unless the mandatory data item of reason for request does not fulfill or does not provide full information, in which case additional information is also provided as part of that group. We have the data item name, which obviously lists out what the data item is. Just to note on this one, these are all hyperlinked as well. So if you select on any of the data items within this table, that will direct you over to the data item page specifically, where you can gather further information. And then finally, we have the data item rule. So this specifies any rules which are associated with the data item there. So in this particular example, we don't have any, but much like we have with condition, it would specify it within that column. So if we can move through, please. Sorry, if we can move to the next slide, please, Jenny. Thank you. So we've looked at the market messages, and now we're going to look at the data items. So there was also a new user dashboard implemented for data items, and this is likewise found under code products. So a data item is a specified piece of information which has validation and formatting conditions which need to be met for it to be successfully issued via a market message. So when you select on the data items dashboard, it will open. And again, much like we saw with market messages, you can complete full or partial searches to refine. You can also see a full list of data items without any search criteria having been found. When you select the data item from the dashboard, it's going to open the data item page. So this is the screenshot you see on the right-hand side, and you're going to find the information such as the REC data item reference and name, any legacy references, the data type, and the data item owner. So much as we sort of mentioned above, the owner is the specified code which any change is governed under. And we'll look at that in a bit more detail in the later section. You'll also see a description and then the data item format validation conditions, which is the table which sits underneath the description. So where it's applicable, and it won't be in all cases for data items, you will see a data enumerations table. So this lists the valid values for the data and any and all of their descriptions. So we're just going to have a quick look back at the format table that we can see and just understand what these mean in a little bit more detail. So first up, you have logical length. This is the number of characters required without any allowable symbols. So for our example, we have 2, and that relates to the valid enumerations table that we can see, the values defined there. Then you have logical decimal length, though this would be the number of characters required to be present following a decimal place. We don't have any in our example, so that's set at 0. And we know that from the enumerations table, the valid value are 2 characters. We then have the physical length. So this would be the total length of a data item, which it would also include any spaces or any symbols. We don't have that in this example, so we are showing as 2. We then also have data type. So the data type is actually confirmed underneath the title of the data next to the legacy reference. So all data items must conform to a certain format. Within the data specification, the data types are text and symbols, which is a string value. You have true false indicators, which could be identified as a Boolean value, and they may also include values such as integers and number types. Back down to the table, our next column is the data type format rule. So within the allowed data types, data items must be further defined through a set of rules. The REC Data Specification contains a number of format rules which govern character sets and formats. In this particular example, the data type rule is being used for transferring data across the data transfer service, and its rule relates to EDIFACT Level B DTS variant. The notes confirm as well that the rules for this format rule are found within Annex C. This is not a REC document, but it is something that is useful for users and is contained within the portal. So again, when we get to that live demo, I can just show you where you can find this information. The notes column will also give you any other information which is needed in order to understand and to fulfill the data item conditions. And finally, from the data items page, underneath the data enumerations, you'll see a table of all associated market messages that are included, that the data items included within. So you can select from this table and be taken back to the market messages page that we reviewed previously. So likewise, you have in the structure table the data items, and in this page you have the market messages, so you can navigate quite easily between the two. So if we could just move to the next slide, please, Jenny. I think we've lost some data from this particular slide, or I certainly can't see it, but essentially this was going to be an example of how we could clearly define data items and market messages and ensure that this data specification held all of the right information for the parties to share it machine to machine. So we don't have the top example on the screen, but I can kind of walk you through what the purpose was here. So essentially, brilliant, we're getting them. Can you maybe click again and see if, yep. Perfect, thank you, Jenny. We must have had some formatting on that slide. So in this particular example, we have a data collector who's made an appointment with the consumer for the data collector retriever to go and read the meter between 8 and 11 on the 1st of Feb. So part of the information that needs to be shared with the data collector retriever is that they're going to require a ladder to access the meter location. So in the bottom half, you can see the specification which identifies the flow structure, and then on the sort of right-hand side, the valid meter locations, which would be the enumerations for a particular data item. So if we look at the example that we've got in the little green box, which is between the two computer items, we can see here that based on the information contained within the data specification, that group 88B, which is the appointment details, needs to confirm the appointment date, which is the 1st of Feb 2024, the earliest appointment time, which is 8 a.m, and the latest appointment time, which is 11 a.m. The reason for request is, as specified, an optional data item, so we don't need to include any information there. We then look at group 89B, which is the meter details. Both of these are mandatory data items, and the first one is the meter ID, so we can see that included within the flat file format there, and the meter location with a enumeration of R, which defines that a ladder is required. So that just really gives us an example of how the data specification allows for parties to send that information machine to machine. And if we can just pop to the next slide, please. So we've talked about searching directly within the market messages and the data items dashboard. There is also a search function which exists outside of those. And this is a bit more of a global search. So you can find this search function available on all REC portal pages at the top right-hand banner. However, you need to make sure that you are on a data specification page to enable this search to be conducted properly. So market messages, data specification catalogs, data items, any of those pages when using that search field. And what that is going to do is the search function will return data where the term is mentioned, if it's a REC-defined term, within REC legal text or in a market message or a data item. And what it can do is help provide a full picture between the process and the data. So again, when we get to our live demonstration, I'll just give you a bit more of an overview in that with a particular example. So I think that brings us to the end of the introduction with the data specification, and now we're going to look at how changes can be made to the REC data specification. Let's move to the next slide. Thank you. So if we say, as we've said previously, the data items and market messages scenario variants are owned by a code, and any changes to that data must be approved under the governance mechanism of the relevant scenario variant or data item owner. So in some cases, different scenario variants related to a single market message may be owned by different codes. So it's just something to keep a note out of if there are any potential changes coming up. And there are a couple of different avenues that need to be taken in those cases, which we'll look at next if we can move to this next slide. So any changes to the data specification which are REC owned will fall under the REC change governance rules. However, if a change to the data specification is as a result of a non-REC owned item, there are two possible scenarios that it can fall under. So we have a single code impact. So single changes can be raised directly with the relevant code manager or code administrator, whoever is the owner, and approval of any change will be managed by the appropriate governance mechanism. If that's not the REC, then the REC code manager will be informed and involved in any of the changes and the implementation dates to ensure that the REC data specification is updated and aligned. So we can see that as an example at the bottom of this slide in example 1. So there's a new BSC defined process that requires a new data flow, new data items, and all of these will be BSC owned. So in this case, a BSC change would be needed to amend the legal text and approve any changes to the data specification. We also have the concept of multiple code impacts. So these will be instances where multiple changes need to be raised under each of the impacted codes. Where there is a cross-code impact, the cross-code steering group will ensure that the change plans for all linked changes are aligned across the different code bodies and ensure coordination between those for engagement and implementation so that industry are informed and there is no misalignment of any data or information from sources. So we have that as an example 2. So this is addition of a new data item to the D0002 market message, which has a scenario variant owned by both REC and the BSC. So in this case, a BSC and a REC change would be needed, and they would have to be aligned throughout. So just to highlight on this one, that if there are any changes or there are any uncertainties from change proposers, support will be provided through the REC change team, but also any support can be provided ahead of a change proposal being submitted or an issue being submitted, and you would just need to contact the REC inquiries mailbox, which I believe is included at the bottom end of our slide, just from a communications perspective. So once a change has been progressed through the necessary governance and has reached an approved state, it can then be included within a release. Changes to the data specification will occur in line with the change calendar release windows. Generally, these are February, June, and November. There may be some instances or occasions when an extraordinary release window is required, and these will be communicated out. Once a change proposal has been approved by the relevant committee or code body and set a status of awaiting an implementation, it generally will fall into the next appropriate release window. In some cases, it waits because it's waiting for other programs of work to be completed. Market half-hourly settlement is a good example of that. But the code manager will make any updates to the REC data specification in pre-release catalogues. And this is done to ensure that parties have all of the relevant information as early as possible and to minimise impact to internal systems. Pre-release versions of the data specification will be released on the REC portal. These can be found under the change and release section, and they will be done as early as possible, generally months before the release window occurs. However, the pre-release date depends on the changes that are being implemented. So, for example, if a required change that needs to fall into that release has not yet received the relevant change approval status, that may delay the pre-release catalogues coming out so that we don't have multiple iterations. And if we can just go to the next one, please. So once we've reached the implementation date of the release window, a final new iterated version of the data specification catalogues will be released. That will be found under the code products in the data specification catalogues page. Likewise, the market messages, data items dashboard pages will also be updated, and so will any digital REC schedules or documents that are implemented as part of that change release window. Changes to the REC and the REC data specification are communicated in numerous ways. These are done via the REC portal and the change process. But if you or your organisation would like to receive specific communications via email as to when the REC data specification releases are occurring, you can also be added to our REC data specification distribution list. And again, that communication is set at the bottom of the slides there. So I think that takes us to the end of the section around data spec changes. And now I just want to take a quick review around the gas meter product data, what it is and how the REC manages and maintains the change process and updates. Just next slide, please. Okay, so we'll just start with what the meter product data is. Essentially, it's numerous data sets maintained in Excel format, which describe gas meter and converter model attributes, which are registered and can be installed within industry, and therefore messages need to be shared between parties regarding them. So this data was previously published on the SPA website under the title MDD, Market Domain Data. Under the REC, it's referred to as meter product data. And it's included in 5 different files. So as you can see on the screen there, they can be found and downloaded via the REC portal, and you'll see the 5 Excel files on the screen there. So you have the meter product data and the converter product tables, and these list the live models and their associated meter attributes. You also have the meter product and converter product shadow log, and these contain a list of decommissioned products. And you have the meter product general file. So this general file lists all of the data item codes and enumerations, any notes or footnotes that are listed. These are also included within the data specification catalogues, but sometimes parties prefer to upload all of these files directly into their system, so we include it as part of the download function. Additionally, the REC data spec hosts the MPD/RGMA response codes, and these detail all the associated scenario variants and flow structures needed to send the array of different response messages. So meter product data files can be accessed within the code products dropdown under meter product data tables and downloaded and loaded into parties' internal systems. Next slide, please. So changes to any of the MPD datasets are required to be progressed in accordance with the meter product change calendar, which is the calendar you can see on the slide here. All changes must be detailed within a change request form and delivered to the code manager to validate before the monthly closing date, which will be the column 1. Validated changes will then be issued for approval at the monthly metering expert panel meeting. If any changes are approved, these will then be implemented within 1 week and made available for parties on the portal so that a new download can occur. So underlying all of this process, there are several communications that are sent through. So these are all sent to those who are on our meter product data distribution list. So again, if you or your organisation wishes to be added to that distribution list, you can email the REC inquiries or technical inquiries mailbox, and details of those mailboxes are included later on the slides. And then just finally for this section, thank you. So within the REC portal, you can also access all changes that have been implemented to the MPD file since the transition of the datasets over to the REC. These are found within the change in release dropdown under meter product table change requests. The page includes all historic and live meter product changes. You can download the change request forms and see in more detail what those changes were implementing. You can also download the latest change request form from this page and access the meter product data guidance documents here, as well as through the Knowledge Centre and the REC wiki pages. So I think that pretty much brings us to the end of our content. There was just one extra thing to highlight to you, that everything we've discussed today is all confirmed via user guides and wiki articles, which again live within the REC portal. So there are links within here, and within each of these wiki pages there are associated user guides that you can find and access to help support any of your needs here. So I think we've come to the end of the content for today's session. Before we move into the Q&A, I'd just like to give a quick demonstration, if that's possible.
Yeah, of course. I think you can just hit controls. I'll stop sharing now.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so if Jenny, you could just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so we've just come to the REC portal landing page. So we discussed where we can access the REC and the REC schedules in digital format. One of the things we didn't cover was there is also an option to look at REC process maps. So essentially, these just provide a different visual view of some of the processes which are outlined within the REC legal text. So you can highlight these through the process maps, and as you can see here, you get a number of tables which are related to a number of processes within each of the different schedules. If we just have a quick look at one of these, should open. So this is a pretty large one, and obviously you can see that you can find lots of information. You can open these in a new tab, but you can likewise zoom in however you need to and maneuver around the screen here to find all of the information that you need. So generally these process maps are related to what we call interface tables. So the interface tables are included, so this one was schedule 30. So the interface tables are included and you'll see them written out as tables. So this one happens to be the misdirected payments one, as opposed to the duplicate RMPs. But you can see here, this outlines the steps in a visual format of what are included within the legal text. Just also to go quickly across to where you can find other data specification documents. So we have, as we noted in the slides, you've got the data specification catalogue, so you've got the dashboards for market messages and data items. You have data specification documents here, which provide you an overview of the technical specifications. All of these can be downloaded. Additionally, we have let's over here, data specification guidance documents. So this is where we can find the Annex T information, or particularly guidance around how you or your organisation can download the REC SQL database. In our slides, we looked at the service specifications. These are actually contained within the home page. So we have the REC code portlet over here. The REC service specifications are included on this list, so you can access these here. And as we saw, we can go to the digital version of those items. There is also a release management page. So if you ever want to know what's gone into a specific iteration of a REC release, you can come here and you can see all present and past releases. So for the release that happened in November that changed the REC version to 3.14, you can see all of the changes that were implemented, the change proposal numbers, the names, and which documents were affected. You can also review release notes and also go back and find past releases. I just wanted to very quickly give an overview of the search function. So as I said, we need to make sure that we are on a data specification page. We're just going to put in here D1034. So when the search is conducted, this is the search page that we were referring to. So as you can see here, that you have the links to the market message, but you also have links to where this reference is made within any REC legal text. So if you select on any of these items, so for example, do this one, that's going to take you to the market message page. Additionally, if we select this item here, this is then going to take us to the relevant REC schedule, and it should navigate us directly to where those references are made. So you've got a nice, easy route if you'd like to find anything there. Additionally, from that search page, which I have just come off, go back to it. You also have a chat bot, which we call Erin. So you can get to Erin through this function at the top here, but it will also come via the search function, and that will give you a full response to any question or any reference that you may ask. You can see sources of where that information was obtained within the REC text and links that will take you directly there. So much akin to what you're seeing down here, you can see that the text that's generated that response has come through because of data found within Schedule 14, meter operations, and the market message related to request to change energization status. So I think that's pretty much where I was going to go. Obviously, if we have some questions which are related, and it would be easier for me to show you online, I can do so. But I think we can probably move through into the questions piece now, if that's right, Jenny.
Yep, can you see my screen, April?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay, I think we'll just go through the few questions that we have on the screen now, and we'll start with the top one. So is there a way to download individual data flows and data types into PDF when you look on screen? Find data enumerations if it has over 5. A bit hard to copy the full list.
Yeah. So in the website version, on the data dashboards that we looked at for market messages and data items, there is not a download function. However, if you do want to see the entire list of data enumerations and you want to do that without having to download the machine readable files, I would suggest using the HTML format, as that has the entire composite of the REC data specification included. You can, if you know what you're looking for as well, you can use the search F function, and that will take you directly there, and that has that full list.
Perfect, thank you. And the next question is, so I can access the data spec or items in my phone, but on my laptop using Edge or Chrome, I get a "this page cannot be reached" error. I can get to the schedules okay.
Oh, okay, well, that is interesting. So I suppose I would have a question to say, is the is that Neil answering the question? If you're happy to pop on.
Yeah, it's anything related to the digital. As soon as I try to get to anything hosted by Digital Navigator,
yeah,
it doesn't work.
Are you using URLs which you have previously bookmarked?
I don't think so, but I can clear my history out if that's what you're going to ask me to do.
Yeah, I would suggest that, just simply because when the new mega menu release, some of the URLs were amended, so that might be why you're getting that error message. But if you're still seeing that error coming up, if you can drop us a message through the inquiries mailbox, we can then get that looked into and see why that's occurring. Because it's not something that we've heard, but we have had a couple of people who have bookmarked URLs to get through to what was previously the Digital Navigator pages, and then when the shift to the mega menu occurred, they broke essentially, and the error messages were coming up. So it'd be good to get to the bottom of that. If you can provide us some more detail, that would be great.
Sure.
Great, thank you. And the next, goodness, sorry.
That's okay.
The next question is from Mike. Do any REC code artifacts or tools exist beyond the ones mentioned to enable automated validation or conversion of market messages to other formats, i.e. market message, EDI format to JSON, Avro, etc.?
Yes, so unfortunately not. So the data specification is captured in its format as is, unfortunately. So yeah, the best way to manipulate that data to convert it would be to download the data spec in SQL, and then you can make any amendments within your internal party systems.
Great, and I think that got a thumbs up from Mike, so I assume that was a good answer. And the last question again from Mike, are the process maps available as BPM format, which I think might be kind of similar?
So we have tried to kind of keep to a BPMN format, but they are not available, that they're only available in the format that they are. There is work that is going on. I don't have a specific release date, which is looking at the entirety of the process maps that we have and changing the format so it's a bit easier for users to view and that they can be downloaded.
Great. And I think that's all the questions for now.
Brilliant.
Are there any final questions before we move on? Great. I think we'll move on then.
Okay. Yes, so just as I referred to earlier, if you do wish to join the data specification distribution list, please just drop us an email across to the inquiries at REC Manager email you see on the screen there, and we'll get you added, and that will send you all email communications to let you know what's going on with the data specification releases, so i.e. when there's a new pre-release available and when the final releases are available. I think there's, oh, I don't know where that's come from.
Don't know where that's come from.
And then likewise with the meter product data distribution list, same email, just different distribution list. If you can contact us and we'll get you added, and that will send notifications to let you know when changes are in progress, when they've been approved and when they have been implemented. I think the final sign off from me before I hand back to you, Jenny, and I think you're going to say exactly the same thing, but just to say that we really appreciate any feedback that you might have for us. So I think there's a feedback function as part of this event, but if you do have any concerns or any feedback that you want to provide us after this session or in future, please feel free to either email the inquiries, but technical inquiries, and that will come directly through to our technical design authority. Oh, I think Neil's come back up, so we might have had a check.
Yeah, I think it might be worth just other people checking with the links, because one of my colleagues is also getting the same problem.
Okay. No, that's very useful to know. And you said that was when you were going to
the Digital Explorer. So any of those links, I can't get it to work, so I'm messing around now, frantically deleting cookies left, right and center.
Oh, okay. No, that's interesting, because I'm just looking at it from the live version that I have, and I can access all of the pages. But if that's persisting for you and for your colleague, then please do raise that as a help desk ticket, and we can make sure that we can get that looked into ASAP for you.
Sure, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Neil.
Perfect. And thank you everyone for attending. We hope that you found this session useful. Like April mentioned, we do have a feedback form, and we appreciate any and all feedback. Just to let us know what we're doing well and what we can improve on is always helpful. So yeah, thank you everyone, and have a nice rest of your day.